Today, we're regearing my 2018 Denali to improve acceleration without having to add any extra power. And I'm choosing a ratio that's steeper than anything GM ever offered. Now, most people would probably tell you that's crazy, but today, we're gonna prove that it's exactly right. So here's one of the things that I find kind of annoying about the factory gears. We're cruising at 75 on the freeway, and we're at like 1700 RPM. And if you ignore the speed limit and there's no traffic, you can cruise at say like 90, and it's barely over 2000 RPM. Now, one of the main reasons why we are regearing this truck is for better acceleration. Let's face it, I mean, the improved towing, yeah, that'll be a side effect, but I just want to accelerate better, and we need to measure how does it accelerate. So I have the Dragy set up. We're doing a 15 to 75 mile an hour run, just because when I do like a 0 to 60, if I nail it from a dead stop, it'll spin. So I figured that'll be a little bit inconsistent. So I'm just doing 15 to 75. I know it's kind of an arbitrary comparison, but it's hard to do a full quarter-mile Dragy run on the street, especially in a town like I live where there's traffic all the time. So let's find out what it'll do. So I did 2 runs, both were just a tick over 9 seconds, 15 to 75. Probably not that impressive. The truck is mostly bone stock, and don't forget the DA where I live. It's like 6,000 feet of elevation, which definitely has an impact. But we'll do the before and after on the same stretch of road. So we have a baseline at least, 9.11, I think, and change seconds. We'll see if that's good or bad. So, place your bets now. How much faster are we going to get from 15 to 75 miles an hour? The most arbitrary measurement I could come up with. The axles go into the differential, so we need to pull the axle to get the differential out, which means we have to pull the brakes to pull the axle. Simple. Fun fact, these are the same exact brakes that I have now on the back of my 2003. Gotta love GM's interchangeability. Yo, there it is. Hey, that was easy. Aha! There's one. There's 2. There we go. Hoo-ah. Ah, there it goes. Come on. Working on the job site or in the shop all day can definitely take a toll on your feet. And one thing that becomes more and more apparent as I get closer to that big 4-0 birthday is that a quality pair of work boots can make all the difference. Now, for the last couple of weeks, I've been trying out my new Brunt Marin work boots, and I can say without question that they're the most comfortable pair that I've ever owned. So right out of the gate, I noticed that there's no break-in period. These are comfortable from day one, and they're also durable. I've had my pair for just a couple of weeks, but Chris also happens to have a pair of Marin work boots that he's used for almost a year, and they have held up extremely well. They have a slip, heat, and oil-resistant sole, which is especially important working in a shop environment like this. And of course, they're waterproof. Now, my favorite thing about Brunt is their founder, Eric Gerard, actually grew up working in the trade. So you know these boots are designed for people who actually work for a living. In fact, all of Brunt's products are named after real-world workers who have inspired and tested them. Now, you'd think to get quality like this that you'd have to spend a fortune, but Brunt work boots are affordable. So huge thank you to Brunt for sponsoring today's video. And if you want to get the most comfortable and durable pair of boots that you'll ever own, use my link below and code Tolman10 to get 10 bucks off your first purchase today. Try them out on the job site. If you don't like them, just send them back. Because the Denali came with the 6.2, it also came with the 9.76 12-bolt axle, which was the larger / stronger of the two offered. I believe the 5.3 trucks came with the 9.5 12-bolt. Very similar design, just not quite as big. So, quick parts overview, which, by the way, a 9.76 12-bolt, the ring gear, is a larger diameter than the 9.5 14-bolt that we have in the twin-turbo drag truck. So, realistically, we're not going to be finding the horsepower limit of these parts in the Denali anytime soon. And who knows what the future might bring, but here we go. 373 to 1 ring and pinion. We'll tell you why we chose that in a minute here, but this is an OEM set from AAM, the manufacturer of the axle. I just find that OEM stuff usually sets up a little bit easier and nicer, and it's a better part. For a differential, we're using a Detroit Truetrac. This is a helical gear style limited slip, and I literally put these in every truck that I build. If it's going to be spending time on the street or the strip or the autocross course, it gets a Truetrac. So they make them for the 12 bolt as well. And then we have a master install kit. It just has the carrier bearings, the pinion bearing shims, crush collar, a pinion nut, and all that good stuff. But yeah, just look at the size of the big pinion bearing. That is massive. All this stuff came from East Coast Gear Supply. So let's get a little bit of cleanup work done and start putting this thing back together. This truck came equipped with a 323 to 1 ring and pinion. It's great for cruising down the highway, but in terms of acceleration and pulling power, it's not doing us any favors. Now, if it had the optional max trailering package, it would have bumped up to a 342, which is a step in the right direction, but I don't want to regear to another factory ratio because it's only 6% different. Not worth the effort or the cost, in my opinion. So we're going to be taking things one step further. Now, most people will probably tell you these modern trucks that have the 8 and 10 speed automatics, they don't really need a numerically higher gear ratio. But here's the thing you can't forget. A gear is a torque multiplier. So I don't care how many speeds you have in your transmission, any vehicle, any truck can benefit from a numerically higher gear ratio. In addition to changing gears, this is also a perfect opportunity to just kind of rebuild the whole rear differential. The truck has 77,000 miles on it, which isn't a ton, but I'd rather just put all new bearings in it now rather than wait for something to fail later on and have to do this job a second time. I'm using the old pinion bearings that we're pulling out to make a setup bearing, which is just kind of ground out a little bit on the inside. That way we can easily install and remove the bearing several times while we're doing our gear pattern setup. That's basically a trial and error process where we add or subtract thickness of the pinion depth shim until we get a pattern that we find acceptable. So I just kind of tighten the pinion on there with no crush collar with the setup bearings. I'll throw the carrier in, starting with the OEM shims just as a good baseline, and then we'll go from there. Every time I set up a differential, it usually takes anywhere from 5 to 10 different revisions until I finally get something that I'm happy with. But like you said, you gotta start somewhere, so I'll always start with the stock shims. The most important part here is just don't rush the process. You want to take your time and you want to get it right, because if you don't, well, you'll be burning up your brand new set of gears. So this is kind of the moment of truth here, is the pattern. We can measure backlash, the distance left to right, with our dial indicator. But the pinion depth, really the best and easiest way to read that is with gear marking compound and interpreting the pattern. So a couple hours later and many different revisions, we have a pattern that I'm not like super happy with, but I'm comfortable with it. I think this will work and be quiet and smooth and last a long time. That's really the key when you're doing this type of work. Seems like you never quite get a pattern exactly what you see. Like the ideal one is obviously centered on both sides of the tooth. Here's kind of where we're at. The drive side is here. It's centered in terms of heel to toe, kind of centered up and down, and then on the coast side, it's a little bit more on the toe than it is centered, but at least according to the GM service manual, it can be slightly to the toe of the tooth, which, yeah, maybe we're a little bit more than slightly, but I think we're in a good spot. So we're gonna do one final round of cleanup just because we've had it in and out and there's dust and dirt and things like that. One final round of cleanup, we'll press on the final bearing and then we'll get this assembled for good and take it for a test drive. So by changing the gear ratio of the rear differential, we're gonna be improving acceleration of the truck. This is like a mod that is old as cars themselves. People have been changing gears for quicker acceleration for a very long time, but there's other reasons you might wanna do it as well. In my case, towing was a little bit of a consideration. Not gonna do it much or very heavy, but every now and then we'll put a trailer behind this truck and the 373 gears are definitely going to help. Now, if you've got an off-road rig with larger tires, you can change the gear ratio to help offset that and restore your factory-like acceleration. And it just kind of depends on what tire size you have. For example, if I was installing 35s, I might go with a 410 ratio, or 37s or 40s, we'd probably step it up to something like 456 or even 488. We are allowed 15 to 30 inch-pounds. All right. And the risk is, if I go one click too far, I have to start over. Yeah, that's like 25, so we're going to stop there. So on a difficulty scale from 1 to 10, in terms of things a DIY person could tackle on their own, I'd rate changing a gear set kind of high on the scale. I'd say 8 or 9. It's honestly one of the more difficult and fiddly, technically time-consuming things that you can do. I mean, rebuilding an engine, I'd rather do that all day long, but it's just another thing that has to be done for the project, so jump right in there, don't be scared. But I will say, take your time. You probably do have to invest into a couple of tools, you know, things like the dial indicator that you just saw there. You got to have an inch-pound torque wrench to measure rotational drag of the pinion. You know, a couple of seal drivers, bearing punches, and things like that. It's nice to have a shot press, but you could, you know, borrow one from a buddy if you didn't have one. So yeah, it's definitely higher on the difficulty scale in terms of something that you're doing on your own. But like I always say, don't be afraid, jump in, do a bunch of research ahead of time. I actually have another video out there I'll link below that is a little bit more of a step-by-step, in-depth guide than this one is. But basically, don't be afraid, get your hands dirty, invest in some tools, and once you do it, you'll be very satisfied. We're fighting traffic like usual, but first impression as we're kind of going through the gears, I like it. Like right off the rip, we're obviously not going full throttle yet, but it takes less throttle just to kind of get up to speed, and it seems like it's taking more advantage of the gears that it has. Like before, you know, fourth gear maybe is all you really need for in-town stuff. I mean, I hate on these trucks how they're constantly like shifting up gears. It's like it tries to maintain the lowest possible RPM. So we'll tune that hopefully in the future here. I mean, we tune for the different gear ratio, but the Flash programmer can't really tune shift points like you would with a full custom tune. So we'll take care of that. But gearing, as far as that goes, I like it. It's definitely not too much gear. That's probably everybody's first concern. I mean, first gear in the transmission is like over 4-to-1. So first gear was useless even with the 323s. But it hasn't really gotten worse. It's not noticeably different in first gear. It still shifts pretty quick anyhow. So overall, I think we're in good shape. But of course, we do have to give it the highway test. See, bit of traffic this morning. We'll try to negotiate that, but I think 75 is where I tested it before. 2,000 RPM, totally comfortable. Let's see if we can sneak up a little bit higher. Let's try 80. I mean, that's still not bad. 2,100 maybe. Let's try 85. Like, that's the speed limit on like the fastest highways. It's still 2,200 RPM, so totally comfortable for a long distance drive. So, am I happy with the choice to re-gear to 373, even though it's a lower gear than the truck ever could have had from the factory? Absolutely. Like, there is zero drawback to these gears. It's like the perfect all-around daily driver, sport truck, occasional tow rig ratio. I mean, we've got better pulling power, we've got better acceleration. We still have a perfectly comfortable RPM to cruise at 85 miles an hour down the highway, or even a little faster if we wanted to. It'll work great now. It'll complement any future upgrades and modifications that we have planned. Like 373 is the perfect all-around ratio. The only drawback, if I had to pick one, is cost, because the Truetrac mostly, that's like the big chunk of the spend there. But the only other thing I will say is if you're gonna do this, use OEM gears. Get AAM stuff or Ford or Ram or whatever you have. The OEM gears, they're gonna run quiet, they're gonna be strong. Anyway, sidetrack. You'll notice though that we're only halfway done, and this right here, this is a $200 gamble. This is a front diff from a 2010 Silverado, and according to all the junkyard interchange stuff that I can find, it won't fit this truck, but I'm pretty sure that it will. I'm going with a used diff just because I want to, well, save a couple of bucks, but the front side of things doesn't get nearly the amount of use as the rear does. So I was happy to save a few bucks here, put the money in the rear end. So best case scenario, this will bolt right in, because it looks like it might based on the bolt pattern here, the mount here. I don't know, maybe the actuator's a little different. We'll find out. Worst case scenario, we'll just take it apart. We'll pull the 373 ring and pinion out of this, and we'll put it in the front diff that's in the truck now, because they're both 8 1/4 IFS stuff, and the carrier and the bearings and all that, it'll go clear up through. So I'm pretty sure it'll work. Anyway, we'll find out more next time though. We have a few other upgrades in the near-term future for the Sierra. Cam and long tube headers, that's like my next big thing that I want to do. Don't forget, we got the twin turbo in the background, waiting on an intercooler for that. And then long term, we still are going to supercharge the Sierra. So we've got a lot to do. So thank you guys for watching. Come back soon. But what about the 0 to 60 times and other technical footnotes? So if you stuck around this long, I'll put the technical cool information at the end of these videos. I haven't done the 0 to 60 test or the 15 to 75 yet, just because I want to get these gears properly broken in. Right now, I have 55.2 miles on the gear set, and I want to get that number up a little bit. So you get to do a bunch of short trips, a couple of heat cycles, and then let it cool down. And they say about 500 miles is fully broken in. I probably won't wait till 500, but I'm going to go a little bit longer than 50 before I do the wide open throttle runs. But I will follow up in another video. Just some other footnotes, which I think may be questions, maybe not, but you're going to get the info anyway since you're still here. What does it cost to do the regearing on this? Through the vendor I bought everything from, East Coast Gear Supply, it's about 1,800 bucks. I'll put the breakdown on the screen. I think the Truetrac was probably like 800 or 900. That was just for the one item. And then the rest of the stuff, we have the ring and pinion, and we have the setup kit, or the bearing kit. So definitely not inexpensive. If I wanted to save money, and if you want to do this too, here's a cool tidbit. The 373 and 342 use a different carrier than the 323 and the numerically lower gears. But the cool thing is you can interchange from a 9.5 12 bolt from like a 5.3 truck. You can interchange that carrier with a 9.76. So like, let's say I wanted to do this and not spend the money on a Truetrac, I could, in fact I have one actually, I could just get a 9.5 12 bolt carrier for a 342 and up numerically, and it would work with the 373 and the 976. So that's a cool fact. Other than that, here's another potential con of this upgrade is drive shaft speed. So we gained about 15% in terms of leverage and torque, but we also gained 15% drive shaft speed. Now these stock aluminum drive shafts, they're not the strongest, so I probably shouldn't do any crazy high speed pulls, you know, like over 100 miles an hour until I get a different drive shaft in. And that's kind of the case no matter what, but now that we have a numerically higher gear ratio, the likelihood of a drive shaft failure at high speed has gone up because the drive shaft's going faster. So those are my footnotes. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end.